This is DW News coming to you live from Berlin. British lawmakers vote to send Theresa May back to Brussels. Parliament gives May a mandate to renegotiate her Brexit deal with the EU, especially the part concerning Northern Ireland. But the EU says there'll be no new deal. So, is this mission impossible? Hello, I'm Terry Martin. Good to have you with us. There's a potential standoff brewing between Britain and the EU again after British lawmakers last night voted to reopen talks on the Brexit agreement. Parliamentarians have given Prime Minister Theresa May a mandate to renegotiate the so-called Irish backstop. That's the plan to avoid a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. But the EU insists that provision cannot be changed. Well, with the clock ticking on an orderly Brexit, what happens next is still unclear. But May framed the House of Commons vote as a win. Here's what she had to say.
We will now take this mandate forward and seek to obtain legally binding changes to withdrawal agreement that deal with concerns on the backstop while guaranteeing no return to a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. And my colleagues and I will talk to the EU about how we address the House's views. As I said this afternoon, there is limited appetite for such a change in the EU, and negotiating it will not be easy. But in contrast to a fortnight ago, this House has made it clear what it needs to approve a withdrawal agreement.
Well, we've got team coverage for you on this story. DW's Birgit Maas is with us in London, and our correspondent Bernd Rieke joins us from Brussels. Good morning to you both. Birgit, help us make sense of what the British Parliament wants at this point. They seem to be saying, on the one hand, we don't want to leave the EU without a deal, but we can't accept the deal that's on the table, which is the only deal available. What options do they think they have?
Well, the Brexiteers and also Theresa May are happy that they finally decided on some plan of action. They said, now we have a plan, and this is what Theresa May has to go back to Brussels to. And they believe that they can somehow push the EU to give in on the issue of Ireland, the future status of Northern Ireland. So they think that for some reason the EU will budge at the last moment, and that it's not everything is as they say. Boris Johnson, when it was put to him that Europe was very negative about what Theresa May and what Parliament have said to her, well, he said, well, no, believe you me, she can do it. She can go back to Brussels and she can come back with another deal. So they just don't believe the words that we hear from Brussels.
So, Bernd, Theresa May wants to return to Brussels. She has that mandate to try to renegotiate the deal she struck with the EU in November. What reception is she likely to get in Brussels?
Well, she will be greeted warmly and friendly as always, hugs and kisses included from Jean-Claude Juncker and others here. But when it comes down to business, the atmosphere will be more frosty. And that's for two reasons. First of all, there's nobody to negotiate with because the mandate of Michel Barnier, the chief negotiator, has run out with the treaty he concluded with Theresa May. So now he needs a new task to negotiate. And the second question is then about what is the magical solution? What is the alternative to the famous, infamous backstop we are talking about now for months? So far, Mrs. May has not presented anything here in Brussels. And there are some diplomats I spoke to who say, just let's do the game of poker. We just wait until the 29th and then Britain will budge because the Parliament also said there's not a Brexit without a deal. So simply wait and then Brexit has to be postponed or called off altogether. So it may be a game of chicken. Who blinks first loses.
Birgit, it doesn't sound like there's any magical solution that's to be found there in Brussels. Could we end up seeing a second referendum or even general elections in the UK if there's no breakthrough?
Well, we could, even though there was also one amendment that wasn't voted through last night, which actually said that if there is no deal at the end of February, then there needs to be an extension, which would have given more time to prepare something like a second referendum. So the pound, incidentally, crashed after the votes last night, and that's not a good sign for any move that brings a solution to the crisis. So a second referendum, maybe, if there's really no other way, if there's an absolute impasse, but the government has has to call for one, and it has to have a majority here. So we are not much wiser from what happened here last night as to what is really going to happen.
Not much wiser, Bernd. We're getting closer and closer to March 29th. Not much wiser. The UK is scheduled to leave the EU on March 29th. Is the EU ready for the UK to crash out?
Well, there are some contingency plans already in the making to keep planes flying and to keep the ferries crossing the channel. But the EU made it very clear that they don't want Britain to crash out without no deal, because that would mean utter chaos and economic damage to both sides. And it would not resolve the island question. The hard border would then appear immediately on the island of Ireland. And the Republic of Ireland, the government, wants to avoid that at any cost. So all eyes now on Dublin. It depends on Dublin, how they act. Are they flexible if the EU can, just give in to the Brits?
The Brexit drama continues. Bernd Riegert there for us in Brussels and in London. That was Birgit Maas. Thank you very much to you both.